Writing Out Loud, a program designed to explore in-depth interviews with writers to hear that words have voices. Our hostess for today's program is Teresa Miller, Executive Director for the Oklahoma Center for Poets and Writers at OSU Tulsa.
Hello everyone, I'm Teresa Miller and welcome to Writing Out Loud. My very special guest today is Pulitzer Prize winning humorist and columnist Dave Berry. Thanks for being here, Dave.
It's my pleasure.
You flew in especially from Florida to be on this show.
Yeah, well, I'll do almost anything to fly away from Florida this time of year.
Well, we're no competition for Oprah, but thank you for being here. New York Times has dubbed you the funniest man in America. How do you get a job like that?
Well, first of all, we should establish the New York Times' credentials for deciding what's funny. I mean, it's really, I'd have been much more thrilled if it had been like, The Onion or somebody. Because you don't usually say, let's pick up the New York Times because I need some yucks, But that was one reviewer wrote that. So it was really just the opinion of one person who, as far as I know, didn't actually work for the New York Times, but was just asked to review one of my books back in the 80s. This person could well be dead by now, but it's still there on every book. The funniest man in America, the New York Times. It doesn't say, or possibly a dead person who doesn't work for the New York Times. But I'll take it.
Well, sure, I think it's great, but it's got to be a little bit of a pressure because you're funny on a deadline. You're writing columns for the Miami Herald, and some days probably aren't great days. Maybe your toilet really does explode, and you kind
No, that would be a good day. If you're a humor columnist, when your toilet explodes, you go, yes, because there you have a column. But the bad days are when nothing happens, nothing has happened. You think you've written about everything you could possibly write about, but you still, as you say, you still have a deadline. And that's where the advantage of just being, a liar comes in really handy. I can just unlike real columnists, I don't have to have a real opinion or even present real facts. I can just, lie. So I do that a lot.
Have you been practicing that for quite a while?
Yeah. Although it's hurt me in a way because people don't believe anything I write, which is why over the years I came to write the phrase, I'm not making this up, often, which is not a phrase I invented by any means, but it has come to be associated with me, and now I have a large team of lawyers that sue anybody who uses any of the words in it. I am not making or up are all mine. I own them.
I thought that was original.
And this, I'm still in
contention over?
Legal. There's a little dispute over who owns this, but I own all the other words.
Well,
but I have used that a lot. But people don't even believe it when I say I'm not making this up, even though I'm not when I say it. Making it up.
Exactly. I'm with you. And listen, you cover such a wide range of subjects, everything from an Olympic curling competition to birthday parties for 2-year-olds. Have you developed a sense about what's going to work in a column and what's not?
That's a trick. I mean, sometimes you just know that something is going to be funny. And there's certain topics that people just relate to. You mentioned I wrote about my daughter's birthday party. Pretty much every parent in the world is going to relate to a column about 2-year-old birthday parties because they're hideously horrible events that no one enjoys. Parents don't, and the children don't, and we really don't know why we have them. So that's an easy one. But I can't even remember what your question. Oh yeah, do I know? And then sometimes I'll think I've got a topic that's just going to be easy and it's going to be nothing, and it isn't. It's just hard. And then sometimes I'll have no topic at all, but I'll just have one sentence and I'll write it, and suddenly the whole column just comes out. So it's usually it's somewhere in between most of the time. Yes, part of it is easy, part of it is hard. I can't really predict who's going to like what. And with any column, some people will like it, some won't. Some of them get much more of a response than others, but I generally cannot predict which ones those will be.
Well, that's probably part of the fun of it for you.
Yeah, it is. I'm always ahead a couple of weeks. I have to produce them about 3 weeks ahead for the deadlines of various newspapers in syndication. So I kind of forget what I've written sometimes because I'm on something else, and then it's always funny when people, when all of a sudden a whole bunch of people say, boy, I really like that column, or boy, that was really stupid. I don't even know what they're talking about sometimes.
Yeah, well.
I mean, I'm sure they're correct if they're saying it was stupid, but, I wish I knew why.
But you're getting this kind of response, and it seems to me that a syndicated columnist has particularly a close association with the reader. It's almost like you're in our homes. We go pick you up when we're in our bathrobes. We bring you in. You see us eating our cereal.
And I appreciate that.
Do you? That we pick you up and bring you in.
Yeah, I mean, if I could count the times I've lain on somebody's lawn, just wait. No.
Yeah,
we won't go there.
We won't go there. No. You're still disputing the this thing.
Yeah.
But What kind of feedback do you get from your readers?
I have pretty wonderful readers, and you're absolutely right. They tend to view me as somebody they know, because I don't write the kind of voice of God column, I think, that people associate with newspapers, where the columnist is got a powerful, strong opinion about, Kashmir or something that
Exactly.
typically the reader isn't even quite sure where that is, and the columnist has all these powerful views and everything. And I am clearly a person who has no real information, and nothing useful to say. I'm obviously kind of more on their level, and I'm writing about things that are more, I think, generally close to home. And if I'm not, I'm clearly incorrect anyway. So I think people just sort of naturally figure I'm one of them, and I'm very fallible, and maybe even much, more fallible than they are, and they like that, and they like that I write about things they know about. So I get a lot of mail. A lot of articles people mail me. I get a lot of columns from just mail. I mean, I have to fight the temptation sometimes to just never do anything but tell people what people have sent me in the mail, because it's so amazing, some of it.
And you get suggestions, I bet, like you need to do a column about this or that.
Except the suggestions you get are very often ridiculous. I've talked about this with other writers. People don't really get what a topic is for a column. They'll come up to you and go, "I got a great topic for you," and I'll go, "What?" And I'll go, "Cereal." And then I kind of wait for, like maybe
Cereal,
a verb,
what? A verb,
something, but that's it, cereal. So you don't always get the best suggestions from people. Although I have gotten hilarious suggestions from sometimes just, I remember one, I don't know why it just popped in my mind, but just how a column that just turns out to be an easy one to write and people really like, that I wouldn't have thought to write on my own. A woman wrote in and said, I just want to know, I'm married and I've observed my husband many times in the kitchen, and I would like to know why it is that men will stand in the middle of a kitchen and go, "Where's the spatula?" instead of, looking for it.
That's good. That is good.
And I wrote a whole column about how men have much more important things on their minds,
Well, that's debatable.
Well, I love to write about, differences between men and women.
Oh, well, so you...
Inevitably, I'm pointing out that men are stupid, and women like that,
Well, yeah, they do.
It's a good way to pick up chicks, point out that men are stupid.
I like that, too.
You young men in the audience, just go around saying, "Boy, a guy's stupid," and women will like that. Because
that's good. You're very charming, Dave. Just let me add.
Thank you.
Incredibly charming.
Thank you.
You've gotten a lot of professional feedback, too, and won a Pulitzer Prize in 1988.
How did that ever happen? People still ask me.
Well, but that's a wonderful thing. You make fun of that, but that's got to be great.
Yeah, getting a Pulitzer Prize, I mean, first of all, this is not false modesty. I really did not think I was going to win a Pulitzer Prize, except maybe when I was dead, if they give them today. Like one of those posthumous Lifetime Achievement Awards. But
where we all get together and say we wish Dave could have been
boy,
here.
we should have given a Pulitzer Prize when he was alive. but I really did not consider myself in the running for a Pulitzer Prize. It was quite shocking. And in fact, the day that I won it, the Miami Herald and all my coworkers kept it a secret from me that I'd won. I didn't know. And contrived with this, and in retrospect I realized it was preposterous. They contrived this reason for me to be in the newsroom, which made no sense. And I very rarely go to the newsroom, because over the years I have learned that's the worst place to try to get any work done. And my son, Rob, was then 8 years old, and had been bugging me for a Nintendo game. And I'd been saying no, because I thought video games would eat his brain. And we're in the newsroom, we're all gathered around, and about a minute before they announced it, I realized that I was going to win the Pulitzer Prize. And I also realized that this meant that we could not take a trip we had planned to take that day to Key West. We were going to leave from the Herald to go to Key, and Rob loved Key West. And I turned to Rob and said, "Rob, I'm about to win this prize, and we're not going to be able to go to Key West today." And his face just fell, and I said, "But I'll get you the Nintendo game," because I was feeling good,
Yeah.
And he jumped up in my arms and hugged me, and just then they announced the Pulitzers, and they took this picture. And the picture on the front page of the Miami Herald the next day was me and my son with his arms around my neck with this huge smile on my face. And everybody said, "That was just so wonderful that your son was so happy that you won the Pulitzer Prize. It had nothing to do with the Pulitzer. He was having, he's going to get a Nintendo. He had no idea what the Pulitzer Prize.
Well, Nintendo's pretty important, Dave.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you know, and that was a big moment.
Well, of course, today that wouldn't work. You'd have to promise a child an Xbox or maybe a small automobile. I don't know.
Or
what
Lexus
kids today
at
want.
least, you know, something along those lines. Are there any subjects that are taboo for you? Obviously, the Dakotas have caused you some problems. Or the Carolinas
never write about the Dakotas or Neil Diamond is my advice to everyone, because you'll just, or Barry Manilow, you'll never hear the end of it. Yeah, I mean, there are some things that are just not funny. I could not imagine writing a humor column about 9/11.
Yes.
Now, I could imagine, and people have done it, writing humor about some of the preposterous reactions to 9/11. I've made fun of the airline security, which I don't think is particularly effective and at times unbelievably stupid. But that's not really, you know, to make fun of the tragedy itself, no, I would never do that, any more than I would make fun of the Holocaust or something like that. You often can find humor on the edges of tragedies, but I think there's some areas generally a sane person wouldn't go.
As a country, do you think since 9/11 we've lost a little bit of our collective sense of humor?
I absolutely do not. I think the media were greatly concerned about that. The way the media tend to look for trends and decide that they found them even when they haven't. But speaking as a guy who makes his living in the humor business, I can tell you that we didn't lose our sense of humor, and it's as strong as ever. I thought for the first, like, I'd say a week or two afterwards, I thought I had lost my job. I didn't want my job anymore. I didn't want to try to be funny. But I thinking, we'll never laugh again. We'll never be able to. You know? And boy, was I wrong. I mean, very quickly, people began. I wrote a very serious column after that, and I got a lot of mail in response to that column, and almost every letter was the same. Almost all said, "Thanks for that. That was a nice column. Glad you felt that way. We felt that way too. Now go back to being funny. We need to be funny." You know, and that's. I mean. It's corny to say this, but I love this country. One of the things I love the most about this country is the way we can make fun of stuff. I mean, the way we are not afraid to laugh in this country, and like more than any other country, it's just we're just fearless about humor, and people really just the whole spirit of the country came back, and part of what came back was the sense of humor.
And two of your projects were actually directly impacted by 9/11. You know, Dave Barry hits below the beltway.
Yeah, right. I come out with a book about making fun of the federal government that comes out exactly when and it's a vicious provoked attack on unprovoked attack on it.
Yeah. But I've got to tell you, I think it's a wonderful,
thank you.
wonderful
I think
book.
it's a funny book too, and it has nothing to do with terrorism. But
no, it doesn't, and it shows great love for the country. I think it's sort of a loving examination, humorous examination. And by the way, this is dedicated to your children. Is that right?
Yeah, because they're going to have to pay my Social Security someday.
Well, I know, and they should get something for that.
Right,
a little name recognition.
Here's the book. Now, give me most of your income.
And this to me is constructive humor. Is there a difference between what is the difference actually between constructive humor?
I don't know.
And
You made the
destructive?
term up. I don't know.
Well, I did.
Terry, what you're talking about here?
Yeah, but humor that brings out the best of us. That we can poke fun at institutions, but it's not in a way that's demeaning.
No.
And yet there's sometimes malicious. Maybe would be a better word. Humor.
I think. Yeah. I mean, I think it's okay to be destructive if what you're trying to be destructive of is a bad thing. I mean, I don't mind making very vicious fun of something that I think is really bad or really wrong. But I generally think I'd much rather attack a strong target, than a weak one.
Exactly.
I mean, if you have a humor column, you can pick on pretty much anybody or anything. But I try to be careful, and I think I know I've made mistakes, but I try to be careful to attack people that can defend themselves and deserve it.
Well, I've got to tell you, I think this is a terrific book. It's a fun book. And
thank you.
I've enjoyed it enormously.
Would you say it's for sale in bookstores everywhere?
I've heard it is.
Would you say it makes a fine gift?
I think it makes a fine gift, for any occasion. For any occasion. And I know
well, not a funeral. Well, maybe a funeral.
Maybe, because sometimes people need to be cheered up. I like the idea of that. And then the other project of yours that was affected by 9/11's Big Trouble, which...
the movie that no one saw.
Yeah, it's based on your first novel. First novel you wrote, Big Trouble.
I wrote a novel, and when the time I wrote the novel, the end of the comic premise that drives the whole end of the book is these two incredibly stupid criminals get hold of a nuclear weapon. They have no idea that it's a nuclear weapon. They think it's something else. And they get to the Miami International Airport, which, trust me, nothing I could ever say about it would begin to describe how weird it really is. And they are able to, thanks to the incredible incompetence of the airport security screening personnel, not only get the nuclear weapon through the baggage, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm senile. The checkpoint, the security checkpoint.
Sure.
But the security personnel make them turn it on to prove that it works, which sets the bomb not off, but it starts the timer. That's the comic premise. This was hilarious before 9/11.
Oh, yeah.
After 9/11, which is when the movie came out, the book came out well before 9/11, came out in 99, but the movie came out, was supposed to come out. I went to see the premiere, a screening of it in Miami on September 10th, so the day before. And the next day, I woke up thinking, boy, that's a pretty funny movie. And then my wife turned on the TV and said, look, and then I called the movie producer, said, you can't let this movie come out now. It's just, and they wisely and correctly chose to postpone it till this spring, when absolutely no one went to see it. I think it was very short run. I think in some of the theaters they actually went up with scissors and cut it while it, the opening credits were rolling. No, we're not going to show this because nobody saw it. Well, it was actually a pretty funny movie, I thought, but
and it's got to be
times were not right, I guess.
No, the timing was just not right. But you've got to be gratified by the good reviews you got of the book. I mean, your first novel.
Well, they only print the good ones on the actual book.
Well,
I hate to disabuse.
But
and you know another thing, folks, the blurbs they put on there, those are usually written by friends of the author.
Well, let's quote some of those.
Sometimes they don't even read the book, folks.
I like this. I laughed so hard I fell out of my chair.
Stephen King.
Yeah, Stephen King.
A man who doesn't fall out of his chair often.
No. Now, but let me.
But I'm in a band with him. I'm in a rock band with Stephen. He's my friend.
We're going to talk.
He had to be nice.
He had to be nice.
Otherwise, I could play the wrong chord when he's singing Teen Angel.
See, that'd be bad. That's what you call power. I was going to ask you later. What's
I control Stephen King.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good. I'm glad to know that. But let me ask you this: this first novel. What made you decide to write a novel? What did you want to say in fiction that you weren't saying in nonfiction?
Well, I never really want to say anything in either genre. I have nothing to say. I can't stress that enough. I'm just an entertainer. But I was kind of curious to try it, and I had written a chapter to a fiction book that we published at the Miami Herald as a serial work of fiction.
Yeah.
Which was actually originally my idea. I worked at the Sunday magazine, and I said, we got all these writers living in South Florida, like Carl Hyacin and Eddie Buchanan and James Hall. Why don't we have each one of them write a chapter, and we'll put it, and they agreed to do it, and we'll print it in the newspaper. And that's, we didn't think of it as a book. So because it was my idea, I wrote the first chapter, and we handed it off, and it ended up with two chapters, one by Elmore Leonard and one by Carl Hyacin. And it was up and down all over. It was an insane book. It didn't make much sense, as serial novels often don't. But the readers loved it, and to our complete shock, a major New York publisher, Putnam's, said they wanted to publish it. And the editor, and they actually did pretty well, and the editor of that book was a guy named Neil Nyron, who's Carl Hyacin's editor, and he liked my chapter, and he asked me if I would try writing a book. A fiction, and I said, I don't know how to do that. And he said, yes, you do, just do it. And so I did. So in other words, I really was clueless, and it's a miracle that I ever finished it, because what Neil did not tell me is, and anybody thinking of writing a novel should write this down, you have to have a plot.
That's the tricky part.
Oh, man.
That's where I get stuck every time. I have writer's block now, because it's a plot situation.
It's always a plot. Because you're sitting there, you spend endless hours. I mean, if you know what they're supposed to do, hey, it's no problem, what they say and how they walk and all that. But then you sit there and think, okay, but if he has the gun, then why would he have gone to the room? And why would the other guy be in the elevator? And how did, and you start it's incredibly complicated.
Well, see, I have a situation room in my house just to deal with these things. Do you have a situation room?
I don't even know what that is.
Oh, that's where you
Maybe that's why I have so much trouble.
War plans,
I can't do that. I try to outline it ahead of time, and I just give up, and I just say, I'm just going to write it. And so I start writing it.
Tell you, you've certainly been prolific with your nonfiction. You've put together several collections. We're going to be showing some of them on screen. Several collections of your other writings, several original books of nonfiction. fiction. What keeps you going? What are you?
A tremendous quantity of drugs.
I thought so. There were
No, just kidding, kids. No, I don't know. I think I'm a worthless human being if I'm not producing words all the time. I think it's really what it comes down to. A sense of inadequacy and lack of self-esteem is my secret.
When you write a brand new nonfiction book, what is it like for you? How is that different from writing a column? Is it kind of nice to write
a brand
beyond
new
the
nonfiction?
margins? Brand new nonfiction. It's kind of nice to write beyond the column. The width
Yeah,
of the
but
column.
that's much more similar to the column writing process. And I'll do it generally a chapter at a time. And a chapter is not a column; it's longer, but it's kind of I'm writing humor, and the rhythms of humor are familiar to me, and the running jokes and stuff like that. That's to me very close to what I do anyway for the newspaper. It's unlike the fiction, which feels very different. Not only the plot part, which is the huge difference, but when you're actually writing, I find myself thinking more about advancing the story and how characters would say things and that sort of thing than I do about making it funny. I mean, I like to make it funny, and I make it funny when I can, but that's not my goal. My goal is to make the story good. So it's a different feel.
In so much of your writing, again, I think one of the reasons we relate to it, whether it's in book form or in the column, is based on your family. How does your family feel about being included? How does Robbie feel? How does Sophie feel?
Well, Sophie fortunately is 2 years old and therefore can't read, and
she knows more than you think.
She knows everything, but she doesn't really care what I write about. Rob, tragically, does know how to read. He's 21, and at some point he picked it up. Kids pick these things up.
I know.
You got to be careful.
You did your best, didn't you?
I did. And so he figured out at some point, that I was writing columns involving him. And we talked about it. And I said, I will never write a word about you that you don't approve of. So we had a deal that if I ever mention him in a column, he sees the column, and if he doesn't like it, I'll change it, or I'll just won't submit that column. But he's never, ever objected. He's pretty cool about it. So.
And then actually there was a TV series, Dave's World, that was, I guess, loosely based on your
Extremely
life.
loosely, yeah. It was it was a good show, but it was not really about me. I mean, the premise was about me. It was, in fact, they called the guy Dave Barry. It was ridiculous, and it had him be a
wasn't subtle.
No, had him be a humor writer and everything. Although he never writes. That's one difference between my life and that show is the guy. He does wacky adventures. I don't have wacky adventures. I sit in front of a computer like this all day. And every now and then he would produce a column, and it would be in an envelope, which all my friends thought was hilarious because that's really not how you turn a column in. But it was a good show. It just wasn't really me. It was a sitcom. It had to have kind of consistent running characters. It had to have real plots. It had to have meaning. I didn't have anything else things in my columns, So sometimes the episodes would be loosely based on a column I'd written, or even take a line or two. But most of it was written by guys in California.
Well, it's sort of removed from life. It's not one of the reality shows like A Visit with the Osborne Family.
Right, which is, that's much more like my life.
Yeah, see, and that's what they ought to do is bring the cameras into your house. A while ago you mentioned the band. Tell us about how you got involved with this band and the band members and why you pursue this.
It's a band of authors, mostly authors. Stephen King is probably our most prominent author, but Amy Tan is in it, Ridley Pearson, Mitch Albom, James McBride, I hope I'm not, Roy Blunt Jr., and various other authors come and go sometimes. Matt Groening is the guy who started The Simpsons to perform with us, Barbara Kingsolver, and I'm sure people I'm leaving out, but we got together just to do one literacy benefit 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And we stunk, but boy did we like it. And we made friends. Everybody just had so much fun because writing is such a solitary occupation. And here we were doing something we're all together on stage, and it was something we just weren't expected to be any good at. And we delivered on that expectation. So we just loved it, and we just kept doing it, and we still do it. We always do it for charity so that we can, point that out to the audience numerous times. We're not getting paid for this. Is for a good cause, Well, we have a lot of fun.
Is there ever going to be a recording?
No, not a recording that we would allow anybody to hear. That kind of recording, no.
No, oh shoot. Well,
if people would just buy it but not be able to listen to it, that way we would sell that kind of a CD.
That's good. That's
a CD.
novel
You bought it,
approach.
and it would be like the tape in Mission Impossible. It just self-destructed immediately when you got it home. That I could see us selling, but if you had actually get the music off the CD, no, no, no. We like to have the audience in front of us and drinking heavily, where we know what we're doing.
That's getting a lot of crowd control.
Yeah.
In closing today, Dave, I wanted to ask you, you wrote the one novel. You've just finished a second novel. Is it a
Just
sequel?
yesterday.
Is it a sequel any way related to the first one?
No, it's similar in that it's set in South Florida and has a bunch of wacky characters who get in trouble and for the most part don't really understand what they're doing. And some of them are very bad people. But the plot is, I think, quite different. The characters are all different, so it's not a sequel.
Do you think you'll write a third novel? Is this going to be something ongoing? Are you going to write as many novels as you do nonfiction? And
first of all, we'd have to see. I think we have to see how this one did. But yeah, maybe not for a while. It's so hard, and it takes so much time that I want to just decompress from that for a while.
How do you balance all these different responsibilities with family? Because you obviously have some good quality.
Family.
Yeah, your family.
My family. Oh my God, my
Remember
family.
Robbie and Sophie? We were talking about them earlier.
It's hard. Probably the best thing that I have going for me in that respect is that I work at home. So I see Rob when he's around and when he's not in college or off somewhere, and Sophie all the time. And my wife Michelle works in the same room I do, so we're together all day. So in that sense, I have time with them. That kind of compensates for the fact that I'm usually writing every day of the week or traveling or something. So I am overcommitted and I need to do something about that. But thanks for bringing it up. I feel like a scum now.
No, but you're having fun with it still.
Yeah,
You're still.
I sure am.
Yeah, that's good. Dave Berry, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me on.
Congratulations. We're glad that not
Thanks
only
for bringing these shells for me, too.
Listen, anytime.
I don't usually get shells when
We
I do an
spare no
interview.
expense for
Thanks.
guests like you.
Are they edible?
Yeah,
No.
go ahead. Go ahead and enjoy. They'll sharpen your teeth. Thank you, Dave Berry, for being here.
My pleasure, thanks.
Thank all of you for joining us on Writing Out Loud.
Well, there they are.
There they are, yes. You're wonderful.
Writing Out Loud is underwritten by
Koch Industries. Koch is a proud employer of nearly 1,000 Oklahomans. Koch Industries, you know us better than you think.